Welcome to Keeping Up with Our Community, a podcast for and about Romeo Community Schools. Each week, we will invite different guests to share insights about some unique aspects of our schools. This podcast is powered by the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or personal use, look no further than MIT TV. Their in-studio podcast experience allows you to record perfect audio and capture amazing video. That's all right here at the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. Contact them now via email for a free consultation and schedule a visit at mit.tvpodcast@gmail.com. That's mitt.tvpodcast@gmail.com. Hello, my name is Marianne Brush, and I'm the Communications and Marketing Supervisor for Romeo Community Schools. Coming up is episode 40 of the Keeping Up with Our Community Schools podcast, and the second in our series on this year's theme of purpose. Our focus today is on purpose in athletics, and we've invited 3 special guests to join us. All 3 of our guests are Romeo High School teachers who also serve the district as coaches. Kurt Reines is Romeo's head varsity football coach. Jim Callie coaches wrestling at the high school and football at the middle school. And Mike Buslip, a special services teacher in the Adjusted Studies program, is head coach for Romeo High School's cross-country and track and field teams. I will now turn the discussion over to our host, Superintendent Dr. Todd Robinson.
All right. Well, welcome, guys. I am humbled, quite honestly, to do this podcast, and grateful that I've just gotten to know you guys over my last 7 years here in the district, and I'm envious at times because outside of Dad, I think the title that I revered the most was coach. And it's interesting now that I can run into 45-year-olds who refer to me as coach, and reflect that probably means I'm old. So anyways, I'm working through this year just this notion of taking time in podcast to kind of embrace our annual theme of purpose. And after we did the first episode where I spent some time with some of our teachers, I was like, I think we need to reflect on different elements of work that happens in the school district. So I was like, let's shoot for athletics, and you guys definitely came to mind just because of the tenure and the success and the things that I know that are important to you outside of just winning. And sometimes I think that there's just programs and people, and sometimes they're very revered, but it's not much more than winning. And often when they get into a cycle of not winning, it crumbles, and so there's no shortage of success. I would be remiss if I didn't congratulate Coach Reines on another season, maybe not, as many wins, but I was grateful to hear one of your quotes in the paper recently about how enjoyable it was to spend time with your team this year, that the outside world might not have expected, your response to be. Mike, just amazed, congratulations coming off
Thank you.
a second state championship with the girls. I kind of went on a tangent at the last board meeting, because I just needed to speak to the fact I've watched a lot of sports and I'm a super competitive person.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I've seen a single more dominant performance than when I went to the regional meet. It's like to some degree, I felt like I couldn't cheer, because it's so dominating. It's like, go Romeo. Yeah. So anyways, congratulations. And
thank you.
And Jim, you're gearing up to get going with the winter wrestling season. So
we're excited.
Yeah, I bet you are. You've told me that things look good with the team.
Yeah.
So I'd like to start with just spending a little bit of time, hearing from you. We've asked you to spend a little time to develop a purpose statement, all of our staff. So why don't we just take a minute and reflect on where you came to with that, and maybe some of the things that are important when you were putting that together. Kurt, you want to jump in first?
Yeah, and it's funny that you brought up a little bit of intro of maybe records not being the same, and what does that mean? And last night I was at a Central Bowling Green game where we had 3 Romeo Bulldogs playing on the field, which was a really proud moment for me. And a dad came up and said, this was your worst season ever, wasn't it? And I said, by whose standards? Like, by my standards, this was a pretty amazing. We overcome a lot of adversity and, grew as a program and a bunch of young men who are different today than they were when the season started. So, I really, I feel like it's my calling to be a coach. And I think one of the things that most our coaches and teachers are gifted with is the ability to see something special in everybody. And not only do we see that special thing in a kid, as we find a way to kind of bring it out. And, that's different for every kid. Some kids need to be pushed, some kids need to be hugged. And, but I think that there's something powerful about belief in yourself. And sometimes kids don't have it yet, and they need a coach to believe in them so that they can now see it themselves and believe in themselves. And once you light that fire, watch out, because they can do anything. So,
yeah, great. Mike?
Yeah, as far as my purpose, it's interesting how I just even got into coaching, because I never thought I'd be a coach. I was always a quiet, reserved type of person and not like a fiery person. It was always people around me trying to lift me up. And it's just one of those things where um, how enamored I got with sports and just in general, and just my journey, I wanted to give back in some way, shape, or form. And turns out coaching ended up being a gift that I wanted to give back. And yeah, it's amazing what we can do as coaches, because to instill confidence in kids that might not be the most confident, to instill the hard work, the dedication, the discipline, to me, it's second to none. And well, I'm so glad that you started off this conversation with about the winning and losing, because it's not about the winning and losing. It's more character driven. If you do the things that you're supposed to do and you become a better person, you focus on the growth, focus on being a teammate, focus on gaining confidence, focus on, setting goals and not being fear of failure. I mean, there's going to be failures along the way. There's going to be things that don't go right along the way. But, if you're approaching athletics the correct way, you're going to be a really resilient individual along the way, and it's gonna help you later in life. A lot of my character is because of the things I learned in sports, and it's essentially what I'm trying to do. It's just develop confidence along the way in these kids that might not have it.
All right, also covered it, I think. Jim, how about you?
He stole everything.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, seriously, the whole idea of getting kids to believe in themselves, I think is super, super important. I try to show up with a good attitude every day, and learn to value them as people. And whether it's math class or in the coaching environment, try to get to know them a little bit. And I think in wrestling, we see the kids for basically 4 years. They're in our room if they start as freshmen, so we get a little advantage of cross country, you guys do the same kind of thing, but when you're in a varsity sport, you might only see kids for 2 years, really get to know them. So we get to know the kids. I even had a mother from a kid who graduated a few years ago. Now he owns his own business, and she said he would have never been able to go out and talk to people or have confidence in himself unless he was involved in athletics when he was in high school, and especially wrestling. So super proud of that. Having kids, succeed like that.
So we definitely have some coaches in the district that aren't teachers, but it's good for me. Like, I intentionally wanted to speak with folks that served in both of those capacities. So I would just ask you guys to maybe reflect on, does the environment of sports, provide you a different opportunity than the classroom? To kind of live into your purpose, and if so, why? Jim, you want to hit that first?
Well, it's kind of a little bit about what I said is we see him for 4 years, but I think too in the classroom, we're so focused on whatever we're teaching a lot of times that there's not as much downtime. And when you're coaching, you might be on a bus ride, you might be before practice, after practice, where you have time to get to know and talk to the kids a little bit. And we even make time, where we meet with different groups, like freshman group will meet sophomore group the next day after practice, and it's just a little bit different because you have like, I think more time to get to know the kids a little differently.
Yeah, 13 hours on a Saturday at a tournament. There's a lot of bleacher time
Yeah.
to talk to kids.
And the
That's-
parents. I mean,
yeah.
they're right there too.
Sure, you bet. Mike?
I feel like teaching and coaching blend in a lot of ways. You know, as I think teachers make great coaches too. Just because you get to know, I mean, just working with kids in general, you get to know them in a different capacity, in the classroom. And kids are going to act different in the classroom than, say, at practice later in the day. But, when it comes to coaching, I think the biggest thing is just the environment's totally different. If I'm like firing up kids and stuff and using loud voices and, maybe just, getting the music rolling really, really loud in a classroom environment, and it's just going to be a little bit different than, things that come to the table. And when I'm on the cross course, as you can probably see, I'm pretty fiery and loud and just, I think you can be a little bit more direct with them, out in that avenue and be a little bit more free with like kind of the conversations.
Yeah. Kurt?
Yeah, there's, as both these guys said, there's a lot of carryover, but there's definitely a more dependency on your team and your teammates in a sports setting than you typically would have in most academic settings. And then, let's be honest, if you come to Barnable on a Friday night, you have a lot of people who are either cheering or critiquing your performance. And I heard a coach one time say, like, just picture if we had the calculus students from Romeo and Eisenhower meet at halftime of a football game, and we're going to do a live math bowl, and we're going to cover it on Twitter and social media. Like, the stakes are a little bit higher, and you're probably going to get the best out of everybody. And I think there's some good and bad with that additional pressure, especially today with kids and social media, that people are going to let you know some things you don't like and some things you like, but that's just another opportunity to teach some life lessons. So
yeah, one of the things that I really learned to appreciate about you gentlemen is just the notion of how whether it's always intentional or not, how you model for your athletes. I've seen, you in instances in front of a lot of people where something hasn't gone right and a player has maybe done something very egregious, and just your calm demeanor. Jim, I spent a lot of time in wrestling gymnasiums and spent some time coaching, and like I always just appreciate how in the middle of this ref has done the most egregious thing in the world, your demeanor is pretty calm and collect. And that doesn't mean you don't agree and maybe say a few things, but like your kids, I think kids are watching. And Mike, I know you can get fiery, but like I've heard from your athletes, like your caring demeanor and your humble nature really is something that I think they admire and try and emulate. So talk a little bit about just you modeling for your athletes and how that's part of how you approach the work and your purpose with what you do. Kurt?
Yeah, a big, our standards in our program is control the controllables, your effort, your attitude, and being a servant leader. And I think it cleans things up for kids because they know if they focus on the things they control, they're not wasting energy and creating anxiety and things that they can't. And I think those are things that if you live by, are going to get you through some tough times. And I know we all have had former players who have reached out to us, and if it wasn't for those lessons through athletics, they wouldn't be the people they are today. Mm-hmm. And again, I think if you're focused on our purpose, since that's what we're talking about, and it's moving kids from point A to point B and teaching them life lessons, and you're not caught up on the score, it's easy to stay calm in those moments because adversity is just an opportunity to learn and grow.
Yeah.
So,
one of the most recent witnessings of this was at a recent game, and an incident happened, and I think someone who was struggling with the fate of the score and the end of maybe their high school career made some bad choices, and I just so appreciated how your response to that, and I didn't expect anything different, and I think I watched that series of maybe an additional 25 steps to take a seat on the bench, and how the pass by of Coach Reines, I think, truly impacted and de-escalated that player's, current demeanor. Mike, what about you?
Um, for me, I mean, one of the things that we really preach, and we use a lot of the controllables too, and then like we're big on that. But gratitude too, just have gratitude for the opportunity that we have gratitude for each other. I know in the sport that we coach, there's a very, very individual component to cross country, but I try to put team above all of that. And it's cool to see, like, even as, as good as the girls team was this year and the boys team was this year, they really like work hard to have each other's back and then try to do it for each other more than anything else and kind of push that forward because when you have that, I mean, you have the ability to grow. And yeah, it's probably one of the reasons why our team doesn't like the spotlight because I don't like the spotlight because we do it for we try to do it for the right reasons. We try to do it for the work. We try to do it for each other. We try to do it because we just thoroughly enjoy showing up every single day and putting in the work.
Yeah. Jim?
I think one of the main things is too, like as far as like modeling behavior towards officials is like I don't want those kids to ever have an excuse of an official. Like so I don't want to act like I'm like that's the reason why, that somebody lost a match or we lost a dual meet or something like that. But what we've done too is we've invited officials in to referee our final challenge matches in our room, and we get to know them as people. They help us out with the new rules and stuff like that. So we try to, they're people and they're trying their best, right? So we just have to respect them for that, and trying to model that, and like hopefully, it rubs off on the parents too, because we're not the only ones that get fired up too.
Yeah. Competing forces. Sometimes, you're trying to pour into kids and there's like a competing force outside, whether that's the pressure of a sibling that did better or a peer influence or even, what's going on at home.
Well, I had one parent come up to me and was like, it was first tournament of the year. Why am I not at the officials table yelling about this call? And I just looked at him and said, you know what? We're going to have that same official probably in the districts or regionals, right? And they remember things,
Yeah.
so we have to keep all that stuff in mind.
Yeah. So, the beginning of this year, and, I'm kind of touching on it from time to time and communicating with our staff, like, kind of wanted three aspects to this notion of purpose. So we talked about my purpose and like our own individual purpose and, coming off of our theme from last year, like I was more convicted about this theme, if I'm honest, than the wonderful journey we had with Choose Joy. And, just that notion of let's reconnect, as challenging, as frustrating as the work can get. Last year was really about let's be grateful for the opportunity we have when the outside world might be sending all the different messages, So this year it's like, let's connect first of all with our own individual purpose for why we did this work. Then this notion of our purpose, and that's been a little bit tougher with some of our staffs to understand, and I think it's kind of like a pure opportunity when we talk about coaching. Because so I would ask you to reflect on your program maybe more now. And that could be your coaching staff, at the varsity level, Kurt, or maybe more collectively, the 9th through 12th grade football program. And Mike, you got that unique element of you're actually coaching two different teams at the same time, and you're coaching boys and girls, and they are uniquely different. But what is the program? What do you set forth, Jim, in your program? And what are some of those foundational values or things? And I've heard a little bit about this that we could kind of talk about when we talk about our purpose or your purpose as a program. Kurt?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned it earlier. We really focus on effort, attitude, and servant leadership. And, at our banquet, those are our main awards that we give out. We don't give out a offensive MVP or anything like that. And, we have several guys in each of those categories from each grade that are recognized for those things. And, society is very counter to that where, you know, they want your value to be something you see on a field Friday night or a mat on Saturday or a track, you know, and um, try to get really across to the kids that those things don't define who you are. Those are things you do.
Mhm.
And I think that gives kids some hope and confidence that, you know, I don't have to be the star or anything and on a field to be a star in life. And I think it's just kind of goes into the growth mindset of, you know, how do you keep getting kids moving forward and believing in themselves?
Mike?
For me, for one, I try to create as much of a family atmosphere as possible and try to trust other people around me and put good people around me. I mean, I have Coach Jim Charette does a great job at the middle school level, and he's a huge, huge resource. He's just a biggest part of this as anybody. My wife, who is also helping, work with the team and stuff like that, and vets a lot of the workouts and stuff like that that I set up and stuff. And when it comes to our sport, I try to like understand that everyone's different. Everyone's gonna have strengths and weaknesses, and it's up to me to find out how to build on those strengths and also like how to fine tune those weaknesses so they all can become stronger together. So I think that's the one benefit of me being a special ed teacher is I have to differentiate on the cross course too as well in order to get the most out of them. But if you look at our program, I mean, we always talk about resilience, discipline, patience, and then the biggest one, because it kind of grounds you, is being humble and learn humility along the way. Because in this sport, it's like it's easy to get ahead of yourself and kind of talk about the future, but we do our best to preach, just stay in the moment,
Yeah.
enjoy right now.
We talked about cross country, but you coach track too. Any
Yeah.
differences when it comes to the spring and the track team? Is that a different beast to manage or?
100%. And track is, from a coaching standpoint, it's just more difficult just because it is a more of an individual component, and it's kind of cool though too because you get multiple sports that are kind of going into one setting, so they get to know a little bit about what's going on, in other sports. I mean, we have wrestlers, we have football players, we have volleyball players, we have basketball players. So it's kind of cool from that sense because it kind of showcases the whole entire school in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, track races, I mean, probably the more difficult part about it is just the individual training plans because running the different events are going to be different, and then just the amount of time involved. You're at a track race, sometimes 12, 14, 16 hours. We're a cross race. I mean, you're there for 3-4 hours on a weekend, and
Yeah.
it's
Greatest spectator sport ever.
it is.
Like superintendents love it. Show
Yeah.
up, half-hour race, 10 minutes, half-hour race,
Yeah, it's nice.
and let's move on with the rest of our day.
So unless you're at the state meet and you want to see them in multiple spots, and
Yeah.
you have to be in shape in order to do it. I was
Yeah.
right in the struggle bus a little bit this year, so a lot of my kids are saying I need to get in better shape, which is
In all your free time, right?
yes, exactly.
Yeah. Jim, what's your thoughts on that?
So I think especially in the younger levels with our like youth club and when I coach middle school football is get them to really enjoy and love the sport. So they want to come back and they want to keep doing it. And then I think a common theme that we always try to impress too is like just to care about the people that you're with, care, the love, and we talk about it like the love of caring. So like you want to help the older kids, want to help the younger kids, and we really tell them like, look, if you want to be, you're a senior, junior on the team, and you want to pick on the little kids, the younger kids, they're not going to support you when you're out on the mat in a dogfight match. They're hoping you lose. Is that what you really want?
Yeah.
Or you help them out and then you support them in their match and they're going to hope you win. Now you got everyone on your side. So
Yeah.
try to do that and talk about that a lot. Discipline is a big thing in life, but we try to try to tie discipline into like everything you do, whether it's training or diet, nutrition, schoolwork, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So
55 seventh graders on the middle school team this year. That takes a little purpose. Talk about middle school, middle level adolescents and your work with them and how that's unique maybe from a program standpoint.
Well, the biggest thing that we had this year was just like so many kids getting like sick or hurt or something like that. And then next thing you know, we're on this band app. We got this from the football team, right? and so people can share. But like what happens is so one kid doesn't feel good, post it on the thing, and all of a sudden they're not going to be at practice. All of a sudden you get 5-6 more kids saying the same thing, and so it just snowballs. Like I think with the younger kids are just like they follow more. They follow more. Like you won't see that as much, I don't think, with the varsity.
Yeah, they're impressionable for
Yeah.
sure. Mike, you mentioned Coach Sherrod, and
Yeah.
it's that time of year where I get my collection of emails and phone calls about Coach Sherrod, and
He's amazing.
and just it's always some element of how he is so gifted at encouraging every kid at the level that they're at.
Yep.
And so maybe I hadn't thought about this, but let's talk like I typically try and do a couple shout outs during these, but I'm gonna kind of push it maybe to you guys and say, like, Mike, you open the door to, like, depending on others. So
Yeah.
reflect on the people that work with you, and the difference that makes in supporting your purpose in your program.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's it's I have some incredible people around me. And Coach Sherrett being one of them. I mean, even if you're at the state meet this past weekend, he was right behind right by my side, helping get kids set up for the races and stuff like that. And that's one of the things I really try to do a good job of just like, this is not my program, it's our program.
Mhm.
And it's the school's program. And I try to share it as much as possible. I don't like taking credit for things. It even goes down to like, I mean, he's showing up all through the summer, getting these kids ready, making it fun. Like Coach Kelly said, I think that's the most important thing at the youth level. It's like, no, you don't need to go out there and necessarily run 4 or 6 miles a day. You need to be having fun with it and playing games and
Mhm.
doing the things that are going to engage you with the sport. And Jim's like perfect for it. I mean,
Yeah.
he's loud, fiery in a good way in terms of just he motivates.
Yeah.
He's a motivator. His whole family grew up coaching, and so he has got an incredible passion for it. Cody Smith, Kerry Went, they kind of do things under the radar. I tell so many people, whether it's at cross country races and stuff like that, our administration is second to none in terms of the support that we have. When we hosted our regional meet this past year, Kerry had to through and just like go through the process of setting it up and contacting teams and make sure that they had all the communication. And then Cody's there on a Saturday morning in the middle of October, 7 o'clock and 30-degree weather, helping set up, gates and stuff like that. And it's noticeable. I mean, you have teams coming up to me, is like, is that your AD? Yeah, it's our AD. He's like, our AD wouldn't step foot here. Not calling other ADs out, but
Yeah.
our AD is amazing. He's such a good guy, and he's not a no person. So if you need something, he's like, okay, we're going to figure this out and how to do it. And then I think this goes with, without saying, just our wives at home.
Sure.
I mean, my wife is amazing, and she has to, I have 3 young boys at home, and there's no way I'd be able to do this without her. And she's involved in it, and she takes the boys to the races on the weekends and stuff like that. So yeah, it's amazing what she's able to do from that standpoint, and the time away from home that's required for me to do it right.
Kurt, how about some folks that you've been able to surround yourself with to help?
Yeah, I mean, we would be here for a while if I gave an individual shout out. And I think that's one of the things that's a little more unique. I've coached other sports here at Romeo, but as with the football program, you need a lot of hands to get it done. And but it does allow you to have a little bit of a family away from your family as well. And really just like our teams, we got guys that, have different skill sets and talents, and we really play off each other, and it couldn't be done. And I think even with Mike saying like our spouses, I don't know if a lot of people really realize most of our coaches are working 40 to 50 hour weeks for their normal job.
Mm-hmm.
We just finished a 12-week season of 40 plus hours of football on top of that. And if you do the math, there's not many hours left. So there is some sacrifice involved. So, I do think that that's probably an area that most parents aren't really aware enough as what our families, the sacrifice, and obviously, as well as anybody. In a lot of ways, they probably are really the unsung heroes in all of our programs.
Yeah. They almost have to have a shared purpose. They have to have share some of your conviction for the work, or it probably wouldn't work. Jim, what about yourself?
I mean, you guys hit it with family, with his wife, I think she's obviously the biggest supporter to me, but I've been really blessed with some great people to be around. But I kind of learned that a long time ago when I first started coaching freshman football. Man, the coach there, he's like, if the mailman's a good guy, it's better to have him than some guy who's knows football or whatever and who's not a good guy.
Yeah.
So surrounding ourselves with good people is important. Got Mike Stabley, who, we've been coaching together over 20 years, football and wrestling, and
Team social worker, team coach.
well, so when we had another guy on our staff a while ago, and he's like, what's Mike, bigger guy, how's he gonna get out there and show? I go, just watch when a kid has a tough match, what he does, and he'll go beeline right to that kid, put his arm around him, and he's fantastic working with the kids. He's great.
Yeah, visible purpose.
Yeah,
in each of those
sure.
people that you mentioned. So this last piece is just kind of this notion of their purpose, and you guys have mentioned just some of these values and things like that. But I guess just in the routine of the sport, how do you build purpose in your athletes? Jim, you want to reflect on that first?
I think it's just, focusing on every single day, trying to do your best, and hopefully that, carries through life. But just like that 1% or 1/10 better, it's easy to like cross country, okay, you got a better time. Okay, so you're a little bit better. Sometimes you don't always see it in sports of wrestling or football or things like that. But we really focus on trying to get just a little bit better each day, supporting each other. And I think it carries on. We had a kid. He went and wrestled at Michigan State, and I told the coach exactly what they were getting in because they were going to make cuts, and he wasn't sure if he was going to be on the team. Well, 5 years later, I run into the kid, and he won the Spartan Award for the hardest worker on the team. So I was like super proud of him, and just things like that. Little things that carry on.
Yeah. How about you, Mike?
Kind of piggybacking off of Jim, I mean, just really focusing on the journey. So just trying to stay in the moment and doing it for the right reasons. I think, it's really easy to do it for the spotlight and the fame and the next Instagram post and everything like that, or, do it for like the reward at the end or titles and stuff and just the, those type of things. But I think we need to get used to just being around people and help motivating each other to make progress together. And it allows us to maximize our potential, maximize our gifts. I think we're, if we show up with the right mindset and do it the right way, great things are going to happen regardless if we win or lose.
Kurt?
Yeah, I don't know why my first thought just went to, like 2015, we won a state championship, and we had a kid, Nate Young, who maybe played 8 snaps that whole year, and I still remember his name today, and was probably, one of the most important players in our program, and it was just because of the attitude and energy he brought every day. I mean, the kid would bring official flags out and throw them on the coaches for making bad calls. He would have Chang being set up, and I do think that's one of the things in all of our sports, but at football it's a little unique because we have 88 different technically sport or positions you could play, but as not what you do, but what is your role within the team, and getting the kids to understand that, like, if we're going to go from point A to point B, we need everybody, and there's something that everybody can bring in the table. And I've had some special assistant coaches over the years who, some people probably would have never allowed them to be a part of the program, but I mean, I learned something new from those guys every single day. And really a little bit different direction with this question, but one of the things that I think people in our community might not realize, but when you talk to people from other communities, like, our community in itself feeds into our programs, and our programs into our community. And the one of the things that I've always just been really proud of our community is how kids from sport to sport support each other.
Mm-hmm.
And, I do think that our kids kind of get it. They might not be able to give you a purpose statement of how they support each other. And in today's day and age, with as much as there is going on, it's harder for them to manage that. But I still think, like, you look in the hallways and stuff, we always have really good school spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think it's a reflection of our community as a whole.
100%.
So maybe a handful of kids will listen to this, and so Jim, if you wanted one of your athletes that went through your program to come away with some key elements of purpose, what might they be?
I think it goes back to them believing in themselves, and having that idea of just hard work and discipline and being a good person, how that can affect other people in their lives too,
Mm-hmm.
and help them out.
Mike?
Same thing, pretty much. I mean, just being a confident individual, and just seeing the growth. I mean, it's always cool to see like kids when they start off as freshmen and how they're integrating in the sport, and then being able to see what they're going to be as seniors. It's just amazing. And cross, it's a little easier to see because you're dealing with numbers and stuff, and you get to see the growth from that end. But we even have athletes that don't improve through the 4 years and they stick with it all 4 years. And I still think that there's a tremendous amount of value in that because they're learning resilience, they're learning patience, they're learning how to commit themselves to the team in just other ways that's not necessarily performance based. Every kid's going to be different, and that's the great thing about sport. It's our job to motivate and get them to be more confident individuals going into life and into adulthood.
Yeah, Kurt.
I mentioned our effort, attitude, and servant leadership. And I think some people might be like, well, what's servant leadership? But, it's doing something for somebody else to make them better. And, this is just a great example of it. So this year we have our watchdog game that a lot of people don't know. The very next night we do a Cassie Hines shoe glow run. And I received a letter in the mail. A lady who had already signed up to run in the race 2 days before the race found out she's diagnosed with cancer, and then she's in a dark spot. Mm-hmm. And she hasn't told anybody yet. She's trying to process it herself, and she made this commitment to do the run, so she showed up. And in her letter she talked about, kind of like in life, she hit a spot during the run where she was just going to quit, and football players came alongside her and cheered her on and ran with her. And she said it dawned on her, like hit her right in the face, that like, if these guys can encourage me and I can get through this, I just need to find the right people cheering me on. And I think, that's part of our purpose, is to lift those up around us. And there's no better way to do that than in sport.
Yeah. So you spend a lot of time away from your families. You spend a lot of time with kids that sometimes are just difficult to spend time with. You manage that parent piece. Talk just a little bit about the return on investment, the reward that you take away from your work in coaching, Jim.
Yeah, sometimes I think we don't really realize it until it's like maybe the season's over or a few years down the road, and you'll either run into a kid that played for you or a parent, and just like they'll just say like, hey, what an impact that whole journey was for those kids, and makes it worth it, and then seeing kids like them giving back on their own. We had a couple kids that are wrestling at Grand Valley right now. They showed up all summer during our summer workouts to help the kids, and I was thankful, and I was like, hey, you guys take care of this, you guys. And it was great, but they learned, and I think the kids appreciated it too. So seeing kids give back like that and hearing good things is always good stuff.
Mike?
The reward for me is giving back for a sport that's done so much to me. And I see myself doing this for a very long time because, without getting too deep into it, this is my purpose. My purpose is to serve, and this is the best way for me to serve, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Kurt?
Yeah, I agree with these guys that, the gratitude that you get, a lot of times might be people you're not even suspecting it from, but I do think if you're experiencing gratitude, it's kind of hard to be in despair or fear, and having that sense of that I'm fulfilling my God-given purpose, gives you a sense of accomplishment, and I mean, we're constantly learning from them as well. And I think a great example is last year I had some medical conditions, and the boys were the first ones to rally around me and share support, and we have to live life in community, and I think that's we kind of have our own tribes, but they form their own communities. So
yeah, there's been a handful of times, not many, where I've been able to in passing talk to some of the young people you work with, and I typically will ask kids if the timing's right, like how grateful are you that you are just a part of this community, and most kids, especially as they get closer to their senior year, can speak to that. You know what I'm saying? And they certainly more than not can speak to their team or their program or something like that. And Kurt, this year, it's like I remember a point in time early in the season, I think a lot about where's he at, maybe I should send a text, and maybe I didn't do that enough, but I had a handful of questions or conversations with people, and I said, this opportunity right now is I'm grateful for it. And they were like, and I was like, our community needs to understand how blessed they are to have those Friday nights. You know what I'm saying? To have the success in the programs that you guys represent, because it isn't like that everywhere. And for some people, like, Jim, you've coached in a few other places. It's been a while, but sure. People, you watch people and how hard they work, and they can't create, that gift that we have. So, your athletes, our families, your colleagues, our community, they need to be grateful, because they're super blessed to just that you're here. And I'm grateful because I know how much time it takes. And your purpose shines through. Even if you can't articulate it in 2 sentences like the superintendent wants you to do, like your witness is all you need to do. So thanks for what you do, and thanks for taking some time out to come and talk a little bit about purpose in sports.
And thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Next up, in our latest health and mental wellness series, our district school nurse, Julie Pauley, will give us tips for staying healthy during cold and flu season. Thank you for joining us, and tune in next week to keep up with Romeo Community Schools. This podcast is powered by the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or personal use, look no further than MIT TV. Their in-studio podcast experience allows you to record perfect audio and capture amazing video. That's all right here at the MIT TV of Romeo, Michigan. Contact them now via email for a free consultation and schedule a visit at mit.tvpodcast@gmail.com. That's mitt.tvpodcast@gmail.com.